Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking a moment to log in and watch this video on our walkthrough of the Workpaper Series 3 of the State Auditor's project for the spring of 2026. So I'm going to try and keep this walkthrough pretty quick and straightforward. I've got an example I'm going to pull up for you. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. While I am doing this, I wanted to let everyone know that I will be uh, posting everything, or posting all your grades and everything graded, relatively soon. I've got a lot of stuff going on through this Wednesday, which happens to be tax day, April 15th. And so once I get through all of that, I'll be able to get into and start uh, and start getting everything graded and posted for you guys. All right. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the first page of the first page of an example of Workpaper 3.1. So what we're doing in this example is, we brainstormed a lot of different types of frauds. That's what we did in the Workpaper 2 series. Now, in this particular example, there's three sample items at the top that are just always in there that I've had in there from the start, that basically to give you some idea of somewhere to start. And you can see I just linked them directly back to the brainstorming file. Now, here as we keep on going, you can see that the folks that did this version they've done the same thing. And so basically, they took all of the different brainstorming tests that they come up with. So for analytical tests for known frauds, they listed all of them. And then down here, the analytical test for brainstorm frauds, they've done the same thing. And I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if you physically link the words back and forth. The only reason that you do that is that you can do that is it helps you sort of keep track of everything you thought you might want to do. Now, I will say, just because you brainstorm something, if it turns out you're like, okay, I've got this in the Workpaper 2 series, but I don't really think at this point it's going to be a good test or something that's worth, worth my time, then okay, skip over it. Like, just don't even include it here. And that's fine. Like, it's not like I'm going to grade it for completeness to say, oh, they skipped one of these. Like, no, it's your opinion. If you think that something doesn't make sense to do, then don't do it. It's that simple. But basically, in these examples, like let's get down to one that was actually there. So purchases at casinos and adult entertainment. So the test that they came up with, the idea was to filter codes to search up text for casinos and entertainment. All right, that's a reasonable test. Things that probably shouldn't necessarily be on a state purchasing card. And you can see here that they have linked it to this Workpaper 3-1E. Well, down here you can see all the different tabs of all the different tests that they've done. So I can come to Workpaper 3-1E and I can see, okay, in this example, they were working with data from October and November of this year in question, and they didn't find anything. Okay, so they put the test in, they went out and searched for it, they had no results, they documented they had no results. Now, is this going to go in their presentation? Probably not, but at least it's documented, like, hey, I actually did do it. If you've done the work, you might as well take credit for it. That's something, in audit that we try to do, is we try to take credit for the work that we've done. So if we've done it, go ahead and, put your write up in saying, hey, nothing's there. We did the work, nothing's there. But at least you get credit for it. Let's look at some others. Let's see. Here, talking about using cards for travel. Now, they made the note not able to determine travel fraud with available data. that's true. Like, basically, this is an example of they come up with a potential fraud that, or in this case, this would have been a fraud from that's linked to something from a newspaper or something. Remember, that's what their the goal was from Workpaper Series 2 was from like a website or news article. But then they thought about it and said, okay, looking at what we've got, we probably can't do that. So if we go to 31I, it should say, yeah, they just put nothing found. Now, in this case, I probably would have just left it off over here. Just to be honest, I would have left it off because there's there's nothing that you can do. So while it's fine on Workpaper 2, Workpaper 3, it just didn't need to be. This last one, misuse of government cards for personal services and items. So what they've done is they've sat back and they've brainstormed, thought, okay, what might be personal? Well, maybe using an Airbnb. Okay, 3-1J. The occurrence of Airbnb transactions should be investigated in case they are personal in nature. So what they didn't do here is, I'm thinking that they did identify some transactions, but they didn't list anything. And I would have liked to have seen something like, okay, here are the 3 transactions they should be looked at. So I would argue that, in this kind of instance, you should do just a little bit more, at least list out like, hey, here are the ones here's what we're talking about. You should, go investigate these. If I click through the work papers themselves, all right, here's one. This is 3-1B. 3-1B, search for transactions under these merchant codes, search for text with betting, gambling, lottery, and legal services. Basically, they're trying to determine if there's any gambling or things that the cards are being used for that, according to the PCAR, like rules and stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. And so if I get back over to 31B, here they've run it on one of those items. Now, here's the thing, I can't tell which. So if you're going to run something on like several different like MCC codes or something, then there should really be a column here that says, hey, this is what, this was the MCC code that we were looking for, beside of each of these, because each of these transactions have that data associated with it. So you should probably keep that in there. That way I know, oh, okay, they were concerned about MC code 7311 or whatever it was. Oh, here are the 3 or 4 items that come, relate to that code. Then I know what I'm looking at. Versus in this instance where they're just big blocks of data. I don't know why the individual was questioning any specific transaction because, even though I've blocked out the entity type, entity types are boards of education and county commissions and stuff like that. Just who took out the, whoever made the purchase or whatever on the purchasing card, that's great, but it's better to know, what category did it fall into that we're questioning. So, like in that instance, keep that kind of thing in mind. Make sure that I can identify what it is you're actually trying to look at or that you have looked at. Here's a little graph where they're looking at fast food transactions and they've graphed out, I think this is quantity. 1C, search for the 5814 and check if there are any unusual transactions. So, on this graph, there's no labels. It would be nice if if I knew what the label on the transaction was. I mean, this is 140,000. This is 160,000. I don't know if these are dollars. Like, did they spend $145,000? Or no, was say $103,732 on whatever this happens to be. Like, you can't tell because there's no labels on what any of this is. So if you're going to do charts and stuff like this, put your X and Y axis labels so we know what they are. It may be really interesting, useful data that could go into the presentation, but we have no way of knowing that based on the work that's done here. So make sure you keep those little things in mind. Now, the second set, that was the known frauds from news sources. Down here are the things where people were, the group was brainstorming. So, okay, adult entertainment, that was similar to the gambling one, but there's also, um, trying to figure out if someone was sharing the P card or taking cash advances, um, look for duplicate reimbursements or fake events and stuff like that. And so they starting with what 3-1K. They've done a bunch of these tests. So here are a bunch of automated fuel dispensers at Sheets. And the nice thing about this is that you can just get an idea for about how much is being spent on each vehicle. This was $205. I don't know what gas price was at the time, but say plus three. If gas was $3 and that's 66 gallons, which seems like a lot, but if they're putting gas in like a bus or something, then maybe that's not a lot. Maybe that's uh, but we don't know that. So like I would include say in this, I know that there are extra columns within your data that says like, oh, this is a school bus or this is, a fleet vehicle. It says whether or not it's diesel or gasoline because that can be a big difference in the price there. There's a field that gives you gallons for any transaction related to gasoline. It gives you the gallons. So, like, if we included some of that, it would be just a little bit better chart because it would just be giving us some of that information that we're going to want anyway. To see if anything jumps out. I mean, all these prices are pretty consistent. And some of these, like these that are $200 each, that there's a good chance that the gas station that they went to has a $200 cap. That's not uncommon anymore, is to have caps on the gas dispensers that they can only put so much in at a time. Now, that said, I don't know if this sheet's 2168 means that these are all from the same sheets. I don't know, in which case, obviously, that's not a cap. But, you would know we can make a better assumption about this stuff if we just had more information. These could be completely fine transactions. But it would help if we have a little bit more information that we could actually, make that decision. Other things, here's a purchase from a liquor and beer store. This JC Minster distributor. I think that one may be in Buchanan. I'm trying to remember. But alcohol purchases aren't supposed to be in there. So like that was something that they've done. So that's basically it. You're taking the things that you've come up with, and on this 3-2, you can see it's linked over also pointing each one of the tests that we're wanting to do, and then giving a brief explanation. The results are over here in the tabs. In the little box here, you're basically taking, 1 to 3 sentences and saying, hey, this is what we found. Because again, if it's not written down somewhere, then you can't take credit for doing it. So if you discover something or you think something's weird and you don't put it down, then you don't get credit for having done that work. That's just how you have to do it. So basically, they've gone through and for each one of the ones they did a test for, they linked it over here and put the results in. Same thing down here for the brainstorm items. And in some of these, unable to verify. None of the transactions reviewed have it. Not able to conclude with any of the data we were given. Like, that's fine. Those are fine responses. If you've included them, then that's fine. Go ahead and have a response to it. Just say, hey, we didn't find it. That's still a response. Theoretically, in a perfect world, we wouldn't find anything ever. We don't live in the perfect world, but some of these tests you may do may still turn out to be, quote unquote perfect in that they did it right. So there's not really anything to change. So that's it. That's what you're doing, and this is really what you're going to base your presentations on. And I'll be posting examples of presentations that you guys can use to build your stuff for next week. just to have some examples of possible things to use, or ways to construct your presentation so that you include everything that you think is important without going haywire over it or whatever. So that's it. Let me know if you have questions. Like I said, I'm available. Send me emails, jump into my office hours, whatever you want to do. But give me questions you may have. Once again, you do not have to fill every box in. There's a bunch of boxes there with some extras. I would split up and maybe, each person do a couple items from, each one of these, the known frauds and the brainstorming. Or if you already split the others up a different way, as long as everybody's working on it, that's what matters. Um, so go ahead and get started with this. Let me know if you have questions. And yeah, I think we're going to finish strong on this one. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the share. Stop, and I'm going to stop the recording. I hope everyone has a nice day.